I need the key.
If we can just get rid of Jeremy, everything will go back to normal.
That reminds me. I saw Miss Emily earlier. You remember her? You know she's Jeremy's niece.
She's looking for him.
That's right. She's helping us, in her own way.
As long as she don't stand in the way of the mother of 1,000 young.
I don't think she knows or cares about that. She just here for Jeremy. I've been more worried about that Detective Carnby fella. He's been snooping around asking all kinds of questions.
God, it hurts.
I wish you would stop doing that. Gives me the heebie-jeebies.
The orderlies, Baptiste and Lottie, were back at Derceto as well, like pieces of Emily's past haunting her. She couldn't figure out if they were on her side or not, and what was Lottie suffering from?
What is going on here?
He doesn't know Edward is the doctor on the phone. He trusts me. I followed him.
Mr. Waits must have had a spare key to Dr. Gray's office, but where?
For me, the original game was more an adventure game than a fight game, a kind of a try to bring the point-and-click spirit into 3D.
I need the key. don't know the combination. Wait, maybe I do. I better get to work on breaking the pact with the Dark Man. It's the only way to save Jeremy. Good thing I still have the talisman. I have a feeling I'm gonna need it. It worked.
The last guest in the empty room suffered from severe maladaptation. I must write this down, because if I understand the condition sufficiently, it could make me deny this fact at a later date, and there is reason for me to think I may come to suffer the consequences from this dysfunction, as some who came in contact with the guest seemed to adopt a new worldview in which everything was predetermined but broken. Upon accepting this worldview, some memories became unmanageable and later rejected. I do not know what this means. I cannot even remember the fate of the guest. I think they were simply misplaced one day and forgotten. Just like all documents pertaining to this guest, they have all been destroyed, or they never existed in the first place. Who wrote this? There has never been a guest in the empty room.
Emily felt lost as she entered the office of Dr. Gray, much like she had the last time she was here. She began to question what she was hoping to find. She was simply going on a hunch that Dr. Gray was somehow tied up in this contract with the Dark Man. Emily couldn't even begin to imagine what kind of evidence she would need. Besides a clear confession, of course. But she doubted she would ever find something like that. She was grasping at straws. The steps on the contract were so confusing to her that she was just hoping to get some small indication on where to go next.
Here we are, Dr. Gray's office. Now let's...
As I was naming the things in our story that wasn't at the very center, but rather that I needed another doctor.
I have finished tidying up Miss Beauregard's belongings. I will leave it to you to contact her agent and have them collect her things. I found one of Grace's drawings she might want back, along with this key in her room, which I believe you've been looking for. Mrs. Thompson.
For great to be corresponding with, for instance, I tried to pick things found in the original game that seemed to have an essence of the thing I was naming. But as I was doing this, I realized that the original names had something peculiar to them. The names sometimes correlated with...
Dearest Dr. Manzetti, I find myself in a losing battle with my patient. As I've disclosed in my previous letter, his delusions have him completely captured. It's bad enough that he is torturing himself with paranoia, but his madness turns out to be quite persuasive to others, effectively laying the ground for mass delusion. I am writing to you in hope that you can give me some guidance. Beyond my ambition to avoid devastating surgery on my patient, I have grown worried about my own defenses. The words of my patient are deranged, yet they often resonate with something primitive within me. I have tried photographing his brain with X-rays. It was surprisingly difficult to get good results. Dark blotches on the plates kept obscuring all details. My patient looked at the bad plates and cried out in terror, telling me the dark areas was the shadow of the worm eating him from inside. I could not see anything out of the ordinary. I hope this is a sign that my mind is not as receptive to the madness as I had feared. After further inquiry, my patient described the shadows inside his mind as some kind of chthonic monstrosity that wants to undermine his sanctuary. This is clearly a reference to a place he calls Teroea, a sort of library or convent that works as a psychological haven. With this imaginary haven threatened by this Chthonian, he has now constructed another, less pleasant hiding spot. Lately, he has been bringing up a metaphor of a steamboat that has run aground, that he feels like he needs to start the engines and reverse, but he is afraid that the hole in the hull would cause the whole ship to sink. I've been watching him turn this metaphor into reality for the last week. He knows it's made up, but he is doubling down, trying to make it a real memory. I feel certain that this is my chance to break through the barriers of his self-deceit.
Names of the developers themselves. So for instance, in the name Taroea, it was a take on Jean-Marc Toroea, who was one of the 2D artists for the original game. Or for instance, the text named The Book of Yael, written by Monsignor Vacher, both fits the first name of Yael Barros, another 2D artist, and also Philippe Vacher, the composer. You might think this would provoke me to start pulling names out of our own team, but I instead decided to double down on the original team. Since this is a love letter to the original, I didn't want to focus on our team, but...
Hey, little lady, how's your evening been going?
Ups and downs, I suppose.
I hear that. We all live in the life of an elevator operator.
Are you alright, sweetie?
Do you want to see my mask, miss? I'm making it for St. John's.
How did you... Is that supposed to be my... Ow!
You should learn your place, little girl.
Why are you acting this way? What did I ever do to you? Grace! Grace! I'll just borrow these. At least he's breathing. I'll just let him sleep it off.
Jeremy knew that the only one who could help him now was the guest in room number 3. The room seemed to have been empty for so long. But that wasn't allowed to be true. The story needed to be different. To include something from the outside, he would bring the guest back to room 3 and show them what was in that safe. 913. But those were not the right numbers. That was the combination for the safe in the clerk's office.
While all our characters are quite mysterious in their own right, Cassandra Beauregard might take the cake. She is our narrator, but she also appears to have died before we even arrived to Derceto. She is writing about our characters like it's one of her novels. I won't reveal too much, I don't want to ruin the fun of overthinking this kind of stuff, but her texts I enjoy the most are the clearly unreliable endings to her writing that you can hear in chapter 5.
Fun fact about this bathroom is that we referenced very heavily the design aesthetics from the film The Shining. Both the colors and the yellow rounded border is taken directly from the film.
The
There's something missing.
Sometimes I think this place makes me worse. That Derceto might be my grave. A coffin made of ostentatious architecture. A Taj Mahal for the drunken depressed. There's something about Derceto. Something about Dr. Gray. Like we all pretend that we're here to get better. When in fact we are here to be forgotten.